Without further ado, let's jump into it. So, hey everyone, I'm Ryan Cook. I'm with Redemption Marketing. Today, I'm joined by Robert Wendt, Head of Research with Elevate Marketing Research. Robert has spent years helping companies uncover what customers actually think and feel before they buy across everything from HVAC to remodeling to major retail. So we're going to dive into one simple but powerful idea today, how homeowners actually make decisions and how that mindset changes between I need to fix this and I'm choosing to spend money on this. Because whether you're in HVAC replacement or a custom closet build out sector, what's happening in that homeowner's head determines what kind of marketing message is going to land with them most effectively. So, Robert, I appreciate the time. Thanks for being here with us today.
Yeah,
Um,
thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So let's start with the psychology. So when a homeowner is evaluating something like a closet build out, their mindset is completely different from a person replacing a broken HVAC system. I think we can both agree with that. So from your research, what's really going on in these two types of buying moments for the homeowner?
Yeah, so obviously there's a lot of things to consider. We are in a phase of the consumer right now that caution has replaced confidence, and I'm sure everybody's feeling it out there. My company's feeling it. I'm sure that if you're watching this, you own or you run a company or you're a CMO, you get it. Things are harder. What we're hearing from our clients is that generally things are harder, harder to be noticed, harder to execute, harder to know where things are working or not working. When it comes to the consumer standpoint, they're dealing with a lot of similar things. So I just want to kind of drop this mic moment here, Ryan, is that sophistication really is simplicity. And I see too many advertisers doing too much in their messaging. That's a lot to unpack, but clarity is the new currency. I want to be very clear because if you're in an emergency situation or like it's 50 degrees in your house, that's going to bring a whole different type of consumer compared to someone that's doing a closet remodel, for example. I think that's pretty obvious. But without rambling on too much, I can talk for days on this topic, Ryan. But I want to make sure that everybody hears at the top of this podcast clarity is the new currency, simplicity is the new sophistication.
So what kind of cues can businesses look for to recognize which mindset a customer is in before they even start a sales conversation?
Yeah, so first of all, you must respond within the first 48 hours, or you're probably going to lose that person and lose them forever because they have long memories. Customer service is in a state of despair right now. So first of all, show up and do what you say you're going to do and do it quickly because they are paying attention to how quickly you respond, how you act when you respond. They may not be experts in your craft, but they are experts in how they expect to be treated.
Sure.
And right now, Ryan, the bar is not very high. A lot of people say that they're surprised when companies call them back after asking for an estimate. That's the
Yeah.
state of customer service right now.
Yeah. And so how does emotion like fear or aspiration shape what kind of marketing message is going to be most effective?
Yeah,
Uh,
great points because the tonality you put in your messaging, whether that's video or print or outdoor, it really doesn't matter. I can definitively say that fear is not a strategy or scary is not a strategy. I see this in my work with home services. I see it with personal injury law
mm,
or even healthcare. People want that inspirational feeling of how they could feel with that new closet, that new roof, that new HVAC system. They don't want to see negative imagery of someone that just got hurt or they're freezing in their house or all the usual imagery that might come along with do this or else.
yeah.
That's not going to go well with today's consumers.
Yeah, I think of like the help I've fallen and I can't get up, like that the whole marketing campaign for that back in the was that 90s, early 2000s was all fear-based.
Yeah.
Um, but at
And
the
that's
same
where it
time,
should stay. It should stay in the 90s.
yeah, absolutely. So that's huge because if you understand how they're thinking, you can meet them where they are instead of guessing. Um, so
Yeah,
kind of
can I add something here?
absolutely, yeah.
A very common recurring theme in 2025 that kind of tells you where the consumer is is that companies that dial down this sales pressure actually increase their conversions.
Mhm.
So people are not buying urgency, they're buying honesty. And one particular client down in Texas, he committed to this process of no sales pressure. He had a closing ratio of 40%. Guess what it went to after that? 60%. He
Yeah.
started selling more.
Yeah. Yeah, I would imagine the lifetime value of those customers is higher too, because if you're going in there pressure with sales pressure, going for like a one call close type thing, yeah, they might buy from you, but the possibility of repeat business is lower in that instance than if you're more consultative and wait for them to come back and go through the evaluation process to say, hey, we do end up want to working with you after
Yeah.
evaluating your
Yeah.
competition. You're still the best.
Exactly. I've been telling our clients these days, the process is the product. So if the process feels a little pressury, if that's a word,
Yeah.
they're going to associate that with you and your company, and that negative feeling is not going to cause them to return to you.
Absolutely. Yeah, 50 degrees, you go out there and you slap on that Band-Aid fix, and yeah, they need to replace their furnace. They've got the three options in front of them, but allow them to absorb that and to sit with it and understand it and look at their finances and how they're going to make it work and potentially evaluate your competition. Because if you truly have done the things you need to do to be the better brand, the better customer service, every guy says customer service is what sets us apart from my competitors. Well, prove that. Instead of being a hardcore sales push, go from a consultative approach, and I think that's going to help.
Hmm.
Your one call close percentage might go down, but them coming back and your overall lifetime value and your repeating revenue will definitely benefit from situations like that.
That's right. If you
Yeah.
fix that small leak in the roof and don't try to pitch them an entire new roof,
Mhm.
they're going to remember that you treated them on the thing they called you for and not tried to upsell them. And so
Absolutely.
when that roof does need a replace, of course, they're going to call the company that patched it up correctly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. So let's move into kind of like what homeowners actually value. So we've touched on this already a little bit, so we're going to go just a little bit deeper. So based on what you've seen in data, what factors do homeowners really care about most when making that bigger purchase? So we've gone out, we've slapped a Band-Aid fix on, they need a replacement, whether it's HVAC, roof, or custom closet install. We've given them an estimate. What do they really care about most when making that decision?
Yeah, remember what I said about clarity is the new currency?
Yeah.
First and foremost, in our research, we do this, I don't know, 50,000 interviews a year. So this is pretty substantial. And the value you're bringing to your listeners or your viewers here is tremendous. Um, Upfront pricing. If it's not immediately clear how we got to a certain price point, that raises red flags for an already skeptical consumer.
Mhm.
You wouldn't believe how many people also want to know that you are properly licensed and insured. It might seem table stakes for a lot of you, but the consumer wants to make sure that they're going to be protected. And putitinwriting.com, that URL is not available. I actually looked it up because the third thing that they're looking for is written warranties, that you're going to stand behind your product. Gone are the days of giving things like, we treat you like family, or we know what matters to you, or we got your back. Put those promises away. Today's consumer's relationship with you has matured. Put it in writing that you're going to stand behind your work.
Wow. That's powerful. So when they're evaluating companies, whether that's an elective service like a closet build out or
Mhm.
more of an essential service, yeah, they come out. You got them out there quickly because your AC or your heating's broken, but you still need to replace that whole conversation around, what they're looking at in regards to, how is this going to be a smart decision for me? Comes down to brass tacks around putting your money where your mouth is, or
That's
putting
right.
your mouth where your money is, for lack of
That's
better
right.
term.
So we
Yeah.
have this really cool exercise where we evaluate incentives. So here's an interesting idea here. Would you rather have $2,000 off now and maybe a limited warranty or no warranty? And then we go through this whole cycle where maybe we don't give you any money off right now, but we give you an extended warranty or a really good warranty. You would be shocked how many people are foregoing the instant savings, cash savings, and saying, I'd rather forego the $2,000, the $1,500, the $500. in lieu of a longer, more robust warranty. Today, warranties are outperforming more incentives. So if you think you have to offer $5,000 off a new home system, you don't. The warranty might be enough.
Right. Yeah. That's really important. But so backing up, even though before even getting to that point, so like what builds trust faster? Is it brand repetition, social proof? Again, we're talking about process transparency here, or is it a combination of all the three of those things in addition to like standing behind warranties?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of the inverse of you asked what builds trust. I can tell you what doesn't build trust. So, more than half of Americans, 51%, say if there's no clear pricing of what's included, that's going to hurt trust. You see a theme here?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
then vague promises without specifics. You see a theme? 48% of Americans said that breaks trust.
Hmm.
Reviews, online reviews that sound scripted or fake.
Hmm.
You kind of see this skepticism coming through these consumers.
Yeah.
If there's only chat bots available on your website to interact with your company, that's a problem too.
Yeah.
I can go on and on, but if you say something like, call us for a quote, that kind of language even raises red flags. But what builds trust is consistency, clarity, simplicity. If I told you just point blank, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, here are your three options. This is what it's going to cost and include. Boom, boom, boom. I want to give you all the information you need to make a fully informed decision. If you need to come to Robert Wendt HVAC, we'll be here if you need us.
Yeah.
That's kind of what people are looking for.
Yeah, you're giving them the space to make the right
That's
decision
right.
because you're the right decision. Yeah,
Hmm.
I love that. So have you seen any kind of like and you talk about generational changes, but have you seen any like generational even like regional differences on how people define trust or value in different sectors of the country? Or is
Yeah,
it
there are
just
s- there are
blanket?
some there are some nuances. Generally, you see those biggest changes in, top 10 cities, usually along the coast somewhere like San Francisco is going to be very different than Denver, Colorado.
Sure.
And San Francisco is unique in a lot of ways, but you see those similarities like folks in Philadelphia are very different than Jacksonville, not
Mhm.
because of geography, but just because of the environment they're in. But you touched on it, is the age generation is a little bit different.
Right.
Whether you're a 30-year-old homeowner or you're a 65-year-old homeowner, you still want quality, transparency, and trust. How
Absolutely.
you perceive that is very different.
Hmm.
So younger people tend to respond more to, that trust, experiential message, storytelling. I'm going to skip over Gen X for a minute. Boomers, so baby boomers today are 61 to 79 years old. They're looking for a message of trust and credibility because they already know the nuts and bolts of what they're looking for. They just
Hmm.
want to establish that you're the right people.
Right.
And then the Gen Xers, they're sort of a hybrid of both of those. So you kind of got to you have to tailor your messages these days. You can't put out a 30-second spot or whether radio or TV or a generic billboard and expect it to work for everybody. Everybody expects a tailored message these days.
Mhm. Yeah. So that omni-channel approach becomes even more important as
Hmm.
you evaluate how the demographics of your service area are going to respond to your
That's
messaging.
right.
Yeah. So the headline isn't just, spend more marketing. It's spend smarter by aligning with what your customers already care about. And I think that's really what we're talking about here is not necessarily what you think is going to work or what worked, yesterday. It's about how are consumers changing, and how do you adjust your messaging to reach the different homeowners that exist out there, whether they're younger, generations versus, like you said, baby boomers.
Hmm.
So switching
Hmm.
over from that, we'll kind of talk about like messaging that matches the moment. So a lot of marketing in this industry sounds the same, right? So fast, reliable, affordable. What do companies get wrong about messaging in today's market? What tone, story, or proof points actually make homeowners stop scrolling and actually
Yeah.
lean in? Yeah.
There's an old saying that one of the first mistakes in communication is assuming that it has happened, right? So you might think that Oh, yeah, we touched on quality workmanship. We touched on transparency. We touched on this, that. But did you? Because you cannot put a laundry list of attributes in a message and say that you covered it.
Mhm.
Today's consumers want you to actually prove, like Ryan just said, um, what does quality look like for you? You'd be shocked at what homeowners define quality workmanship is.
Yeah.
Some of them define it as they covered up my landscaping when they were working on my windows, or some of them describe it as they cleaned up so well after the project, or some of them will say it just simply has to do with I didn't have to have them come back to do it again or repair
Mhm.
something, or it runs the gamut. So when I say quality workmanship, you can't stop there. When I say transparency, you can't stop there. You need to probably dedicate a message to proving your quality workmanship, and that's all you talk about. Far too many brands put 10 pounds of things into a 5 pound bag. They send it off to their media partners, and then they critique their media partners. This isn't working,
Yeah.
because you
They
said,
do. Yeah.
a lot of that sounds the same. If it's just too much, they check out.
Right. Yeah. That's amazing. So like, can you share an example of when a message shift, not a bigger ad spend, has really
Mm.
kind of changed the outcome of that client over their marketing efforts?
Yeah, we have a lot of case studies that go down this path. So there's an HVAC company down in San Antonio that comes to mind first, and it was a cooler summer, about on average 10 degrees cooler down in San Antonio, summer of 2025. Don't know when someone's watching this, but this company, this is a relatively newer owner to the company. He purchased it. It's a company that's been around 50, 60 years. Um, so what they did was they got really into specific marketing around the service agreements,
Mhm.
because we know from research who's most likely to respond to service agreements and why not. So he had a very, very tailored approach for that group. And then another approach he had specifically for the older homeowners in San Antonio. So, long story short here, last I checked, he said he was up about 40% in his service agreement signups, and he's got an over a 95% renewal rate on those. We haven't done a tracking study to establish how did we move the needle with the older homeowners, but I think anybody that sees a 40% increase in their service agreements would be
Yeah.
thrilled about that.
Absolutely. And just a messaging change, just a delivery change. It's not that he put more budget behind it
Right.
and
No,
tried to drive it to more people. It's just he aligned his message to the homeowners he was going after.
that's right. If you
Yeah.
continue to say if you're pitching the same thing to the person that already said no, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So that's where the research comes in to say the reason you're not getting traction with those people is because they're the least likely to want that thing.
Yeah.
So, and then you also, like we said, have to bake in that tonality and that
Mhm.
approach. And spokespeople do matter. So don't assume that you think that maybe the owner should be fronting the spot.
Mhm.
Today, it's the technicians. The technicians are the heroes, and that's the people they want to see and hear from in the spots. So we've got a creative library of how that's done, but don't make any assumptions.
Right. That's huge too, because I think that most companies that are watching this can probably say, hey, I've got a team of like let's say 10 technicians. I think identifying the one or two out of that are comfortable with that type of environment is just prudent at this point. And to be able
Yeah.
to capture that type of organic content, maybe even sending someone to, do along with that technician to go do a video shoot with the homeowner, assuming they're okay with it, will speak volumes because 100% you're right. These are the guys that are actually showing up on the job site. These are the guys going into the home and saying hi to the mom at home with the baby in her arm. And I think that
Mhm.
that's just, at the end of the day, yeah, the business owner can sit there and talk all he wants, but the proof is in the actual team that's executing it. So that's
Yeah, exactly. Today's homeowners don't want to see any more of these group shots with the technicians in the background waving while the owner's up here in the front.
yeah,
Like you said, it doesn't have to be one or two. There's production techniques that really good companies can use that your technicians don't have to memorize a
Oh,
script,
nice.
right? You can do simple one-liners here and there, but
Yeah.
just make note that it's about connecting with people these days. So people crave authenticity and connection. AI and social media are only going to make this more important as we move forward. What's real? Who's telling me the truth? People to people, like you and I are doing right now, is what people want to see and hear.
Oh man, that's great. So how can businesses audit its own messaging, and to see if it's aligned with how their homeowners and their target market actually, thinks about their brand? How could they audit their messaging?
I think the first and foremost thing is to have an internal dialogue to say how much of your beliefs are coming from you and your experience about today's homeowners, and how much of them are coming from what's actually happening out there. Every time I do a kickoff call with a home services client, I ask them, what do you think sets you apart from all these other companies? And inevitably, they say, we've been in business 60 years. We've got 50 trucks driving around town, just an example. We're NATE certified. We've won all these different awards and accolades. Guess where that ranks in the homeowner's priorities of choosing a company? Dead last.
Mhm.
So if you just dropped several $100,000 on a campaign with the wrong message, is it really the media partner's fault?
Mm,
Or is it because we put the wrong message
yeah.
in there? So it's a challenge for some people to go out and listen to homeowners. You'd be surprised how many of these homeowners are just sitting back in these research presentations and they're like, I had no idea. And these people have been running multi-million dollar home services
Yeah.
companies for years.
Hmm. Yeah. So those of you that are using CallRail, go listen to those calls and identify trends in those calls because whether you're HVAC or closet organization or whatever, there's a lot of great trend data in there to kind of tell you what is it that your customers actually want to hear versus what you think you should tell them. I think that's a really good exercise for these guys is to really pay attention to those conversations that you're recording on your call tracking. So it's not about saying more. It's about saying what matters most in the moment to that specific homeowner. Um, and so, let's talk a little bit about how to test, what works without blowing a ton of budget. So, a lot of companies throw money at ad campaigns. We've heard the analogy of Google Ads being akin to turning a faucet on and off
Mm.
without ever really testing the if their messaging is working. So, like for smaller or growing brands, what's the simplest way to validate a message before they scale that ad spend?
Sure. I think you have to take about 10 steps back.
Yeah,
Do you understand where your brand stands in the market right now? Do you have 30% awareness or 90% awareness? What is your ad recall percentage? What is your brand equity and your brand health? Are you known for the thing that matters, or are you known for being in business for 60 years? A lot of this has to be taken into consideration. So, sure, you can do analytic A/B testing all day long, but if you don't know where you stand to begin with, what value is that? Because
mhm,
if you're a 20% awareness, your ads may not test very well. Because if you're a leader in your market and have been for 20 something years, your ads probably test better in both A and B scenarios because you've built that equity over so
mhm,
long that
mhm.
you've earned that. But for companies trying to break through, how do you break through if you don't know where you are?
Yeah,
So that's what I would recommend first. Maybe I'm impartial because I'm in research, but
yeah,
if I was to launch my own company now, I would start with understanding where am I at now relative to my top competitors. And I'm not going to go fight the leader in my market on something they've owned for 25 years.
sure.
I'm going to find that thing. The riches are in the niches. I'm going to find that thing that they're missing that's important to the homeowner, and I'm going to go hard on that for a
Yeah,
long time.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think that's important to understand, where are the gaps for your top players in the market? What are they gapping out on, and understanding that sometimes can be a little bit difficult. And I think obviously that's why companies and the services you guys provide are really important for those guys that are maybe, 3 to 5, maybe even 10 million, but they've felt plateau growth over the past few years. It's because they haven't really adjusted and tested different things based on the research data that comes back. Um, and I think
Yeah.
it's worth taking some time to evaluate what are some research options here in my market or even at a national level to help me kind of
Mm.
make sure I'm fine tuning that. So I'm not just spending money for the sake of spending money. I'm spending it very effectively and methodically so that I know that it's going to have a good return.
Yeah, you know what surprises me when I deliver these research projects? These owners of these companies, sometimes it's a husband and a wife, sometimes it's a private equity firm, but they say things like, I didn't realize this level of research was available to me in my market. Like that San Antonio example,
Mhm.
he literally said those words and he said, I thought this was for like big companies. No, we can research hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of homeowners right in your backyard.
Yeah.
So don't assume that something can't be done.
Yeah. And it's really impactful. And I can speak to firsthand experience working with Robert in a previous position with an HVAC plumbing company out of Salt Lake. They did a big research project and, brought to light some of the things that were breaking trust, like having our truck photoshopped into a street and not actually having the real truck there and taking the photo. Like we tried to fake that and it just got torn apart by the survey groups in regards to, hey, this breaks down trust. I don't want to use you if you're photoshopping and you're
Mm,
putting something fake into your ads. Does that mean that there's something fake going to come out of your technician or your business as a whole?
that's right.
So really impactful. So I
You're
think
you're you're touching on the number one thing that I talk about, Ryan, is there really are five key pillars, and you're talking about trust is built before the first handshake ever occurs.
mhm,
Yep.
yep, 100%. So we've both seen it. So like homeowners are now taking longer to decide on whether that's an HVAC replacement or a new closet or garage, man cave build out. They're just taking longer to make these decisions, and rightly so, right? I think so. And but how has that changed the kind of communication or follow up that actually works for these businesses?
This is a hot topic right now, especially going into 2026. Um, I don't see the consumer just suddenly changing and saying everything's good now. Let's go do that big kitchen remodel or bathroom remodel that we wanted to do. I think this is kind of the new normal for now, and I'm calling it the great recalibration. The consumer's shifting, and they're going to put even more closer eyes and ears on what they will and won't do. So, to answer your question as succinctly as I can, I think you just need to recognize that caution is the prevailing wind right now. And, that sales pressure needs to be dialed down because they'll be more likely to purchase from you if you do that.
Mhm.
Also, the messaging needs to be tightened up. Because if it's not clear, it leads to confusion, and confusion leads to negative sentiment, and negative sentiments associated with you. You probably need to look at the level of production you're putting forth in your creative. If you have less than average production because it was cheaper, guess what the homeowner is going to associate that with?
Mhm.
Cheap production, cheap company, low product, low customer service. Don't go cheap on production, regardless if it's video, audio, or print.
Mhm.
Because even on your website, more than 75% of Americans will say the perception your website creates for them will be directly associated with the customer service they believe you to deliver.
Mm,
So there's a lot going on there, but you have an investigative consumer right now.
yeah. And that builds into like their CRM as well, because so much is being bolstered with AI and automations now, whether you're a Service Titan customer, a House Call Pro, or a Go High Level or Jobber, what have you. Everybody's touting their capabilities around automatic nurturing and AIs for appointment booking and things of that nature. I think that brings up a really good question about like what's the right way to keep nurturing those conversations over that elongated purchase decision making path over the weeks or months without annoying people? Is it delivering more proof, social proof type messaging in those nurturing messages? What is it that's going to help us not annoy them and stay a front runner in the ultimate decision at the end of the day?
Yeah, that's sort of a crystal ball question, but what I can tell you is you have to understand where your current position is with said consumer target. Do they have a heavy amount of skepticism towards you or your brand or your industry already? Knowing that's going to be really helpful. I did some heat mapping testing on those letters that appear to look handwritten for direct
Hmm.
mail.
Hmm.
Boy, do those get torn apart by homeowners.
Yeah.
So, or messages like your neighbors hired us. Neighbors know what neighbors are doing.
Hmm.
Nobody replaced a roof on my street in the last year. So, no, my neighbors did not use you. You're opening the relationship with a lie.
Yeah.
So, coming in with trust and authenticity will be a game changer in 2026. So,
Yeah. That's huge.
as far as like AI chats and bots and customer nurturing, I think that truth and proof is a line that I've been saying for quite a while now. You can use those things, but it better have good truth and proof attached to it. That
Mm.
if I see the photo of my neighbor's new roof out here, um, and I see who they used and they give a video testimonial, I would accept that on my text message all day long.
Mhm.
But if it's just the owner of the company saying, we're in your neighborhood, would you like a crew to stop by and do a roof estimate? Get
Yeah.
out of here.
Yeah. That's huge because I know a lot of you guys are doing that, more of that spray and pray approach. I know there's, whether it's SendGem or using automations through Go High Level to send postcards out to those neighbors. Yeah, you have a location on one corner of the neighborhood, and we're sending a message to the other side of the neighborhood where it's even that small distance, there could be a disconnect and break down some trust right out of the gate. So I understand why you guys want to do it because you want to bolster your effectiveness in this said neighborhood that you're in. But I think you just changing the tonality of that message will help kind of resonate better with a homeowner for sure.
Yeah, I've got some stats here in front of me that I'd like to give you on the follow-ups and how their likelihood to impact your likelihood to move forward with that company. One follow-up is gold. 59% of homeowners say it helps. 12% say it's annoying. Okay, so that's one, right? The second follow-up, still effective, but enthusiasm for your company drops pretty quickly after that.
Mm,
When you get beyond the third follow-up or touch point, that's when things start to backfire and you start to be categorized as a place you don't want to be.
wow.
And if you're in the fifth attempt, 70% of these people are going to say, you now are on my bad list.
Wow.
And I'm probably not going to move forward with you.
Yeah.
If you have gone beyond 10 or more follow-ups, you're officially in spam territory and you've been blocked. They're not even seeing your messages
Right.
anymore.
Hmm. So shorten those nurture sequences and respect time and space and the cadence between each message.
Yep.
Absolutely. So patience plus consistency wins. I mean, obviously, we talked about simplicity in your messaging, but also having patience and
Mm,
allowing things to kind of organically manifest. Because if you are the right company to choose, that will come out. But also don't do a disservice to yourself by over communicating and over follow up, because it can diminish that perceived value pretty quickly.
yep.
You can't force timing, but you can stay top of mind until they're ready.
Yeah.
So um, you've seen a lot of businesses invest in research and data, and that actually never really do anything to it with it or apply it to their business. So what separates the companies that use the insights to drive growth from the ones that just collect them?
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear that in 2025, nobody needs any more data. They need clarity and insights. The companies that recognize this and act on said research are always the ones that have the best KPI performances, the ones that, like San Antonio, like I talked about earlier. Um, he saw the opportunity to grow his service agreements with a particular subset of those homeowners out there, and he owned it. He put together a strategic action plan. We helped him with that. He also launched a referral business too to help those people that have been with him for a long time bring in more business.
Mm,
But if you're not developing, the SMART goal strategy of, what is it? It's timely, it's measurable. I forget the acronym, but you have to have all these strategic plans put in place, and you need to have sort of a point guard that owns this. I realize you have to run a company, but if you think it's just gonna hit you like a magic button, it's not. It's not
yeah,
going to. It's hard work after the research comes through.
yeah, yeah. So what do you see as far as like structure of the ownership that's needed to turn those insights into positive actions over the first, let's say, 30 or 60 days?
Yeah. So I would say that the most successful companies that we work with, the owners sort of take more of a delegation standpoint and they assign their CMO or whoever's in charge of marketing as the point guard to help develop those action plans. And the owners kind of just check in and approve the process, see how things are going. And then from there, that marketing person will then, if they have that luxury, to assign it to some other people. Sometimes these marketing departments are a department of one, right?
Yeah,
Or sometimes the owners of the companies will say, my niece will do marketing.
yeah.
No, you need to get serious about your marketing and not assign it to a family member who showed you a cool PowerPoint one time.
Mhm.
I see that a lot, and we generally know that this is not going to turn out well because it's hard work. You have to have expertise in today's world. Like I said, things are harder. If this was 1985 and you had three or four TV stations to choose from, or you had your classic rock radio station that you could just buy and you'd be good. Today's world, consumers are consuming over 10 news sources every day. They are
Mhm.
bombarded with thousands of messages every day. Everybody looks and sounds the same. You're not going to be able to do that if you assign your cousin or your niece or your
Mhm.
wife marketing.
Yeah, that's huge. And for my shameless plug, fractional CMO or chief marketing officer allows you to tap into that type of leadership for the marketing department without paying the full-time salary. So I think that's one of the education points that needs to happen for the home service and home improvement industries and niches is that there is leadership at this level that you can afford available for you guys. So the type of research that Robert and his company execute, even if you don't have that team to execute that, that option is still available out there, whether it's me or another fractional CMO. And I think that's the beauty of what's available today to help execute on these types of
Mm.
outputs that Robert is bringing to the table. So let's say like if a home service business wanted to start applying what they already know about their customers tomorrow, what would you tell them to do first?
It depends on what it is that we're trying to move that needle on and who these people are. But let's say, for example, you knew that there was a big player in the market and you were not them. And you know generally where they put their advertising dollars.
Mhm.
Um, you then would need to look at what do you currently know about your customers, not just gender and age, but beliefs, sentiments, typical behaviors. Yeah, they might be your customer, but how many of them also considered your competitors?
Mhm.
So I call that a conversion rate. So you can love more than one company. I might go to Cook Roofing
Yeah.
last year, but that doesn't mean 10 years from now I'm going to go back to Ryan. So you kind of got
Mhm.
to know how solid your base is too. I'll give you a story from an auto group in New Orleans. There was a changeover between the father and the son. The son was going to take over the dealership group. And we did what we call a loyalty panel. It's a parallel study where we research their customers in addition to the larger market. We found that a third of his customers were going to buy a car in the next 6 months. He did not know that. Do you
Mhm.
think it's going to be easier to convert those people when they come into the service line? You came in for an oil change, but hey, we'll give you X amount of dollars for this car. With current customers, you're going to much more likely move some cars that way.
Yeah.
So, how much do you really know about your customers? And I find that home services companies don't have the depth of knowledge of their current customers that they think they have.
Yeah. 100%. And I'll speak from firsthand experience as living under the agency hood for so long that a lot of times these marketing agencies get the rap because they're driving leads that were already our customer, whereas that customer did never signed anything with, pricking their finger blood on paper saying that they will only use them
Mm,
indefinitely for the duration. So it's not the agency's fault that's delivering your PPC campaign or your meta ads campaign. It's really on you guys to identify the opportunity within your existing clientele base and use somebody like a fractional CMO or some type of strategist to help tailor your messaging to those existing customers, because they're there, but at the same time they're not guaranteeing that they're going to use you again. So,
Yeah.
don't discount that lead that came through PPC that used you 2 years ago. That's still a qualified lead. The agency should get credit for driving that lead towards you.
Yeah, a quick story out of Sacramento, San Francisco. Just delivered this research a couple weeks ago. Um, so the situation there, actually, no, Los Angeles. This is even a better story. There's been some changes in the ownership of this said company, and these Los Angeles homeowners, they know about it and they can tell, and they're feeling it when the technicians, they're saying, this isn't the experience I had a year ago. Something's changed. And that's when that wandering mentality starts to come in. So if there's been some sort of substantial change in your company, whether you were acquired or whether there's a new face in the brand or whether you've changed your logo, that's going to start changing people's cues of, well, if they're going to change, maybe I should too.
Yeah. Yeah, huge. So again, simplicity, consistency, around that. So really great points. Also speed of execution does absolutely play into this speed to lead, especially for you guys on the essential side. You know, I know Robert said 48 hours. I would argue 5 minutes, for you essential guys. You more you elective guys, your house painting companies, house cleaning, exterior cleaning, not essential but nice to have, garage organization. I think that speed to lead is maybe a little bit longer, but even still, like, you've got tons of competition, and to believe that you were the only person they reached out to for an estimate would be naive. So making sure you've invested in a CRM system and some tech stack that will help at least deliver that message before a human can actually pick up the phone and maybe call that person back.
That's right.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So
See,
let's.
I have a stat on that. 61% that say if they don't hear back from you in the first day, they move on and they remember that you didn't respond. So,
Mhm.
like I said, you don't just miss that first at bat, you miss all of them after
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and you small guys, clean out your voice box. All right, so like, if you're like, this voice box is full, like, no, I'm never calling that company back again. So there's a lot of you guys out there, and I know you guys on the medium size and the bigger size, have automations and, CSR teams in place. But you smaller guys, make sure that you're set to answer the phone and invest in some type of CRM system that's going to help support you when you're not available to answer the phone. It's really important. Um, so let's kind of wrap this up here with a quick lightning round. So, um, biggest misconception about how homeowners make decisions.
Yeah. Well, the biggest misconception starts with your assumptions.
Yeah,
Like I've kind of said throughout is you might think you know the homeowner, and maybe you do know that quality workmanship, transparency, and trust are important, but that's where I see, the folks that say, yeah, I know that. But what they usually don't know is how a homeowner defines quality, how a homeowner defines transparency. Because you ask 10 people, you'll get 10 different answers. So I think the worst thing you can do is make assumptions.
yeah,
So we've kind of touched on some of those topics, but you really have to just kind of put your ego and your pride aside and say, let me really get into this and figure out where things are in 2025 because the consumer today is unlike anything we've ever seen.
yeah. And that bleeds into, and quasi answers the next one. One marketing habit companies should drop in 2026.
Mm. I would say relying too much on, this is going to sound counterintuitive, but relying too much on analytics, like that A/B testing, right? Or someone that says, "Where did you hear about us?" And they say Google. There was a lot that went into that before they got to that point. And when I say relying on analytics, I'm not really talking about primary research like what we do. I'm talking about analytics are usually reflective of what has already happened.
Hmm.
Our research actually is pretty accurate at predicting what will happen. So
Hmm.
predictive as opposed to post. So don't believe everything you see and read.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're happy to go to task. If you want to challenge us on research methodologies, we've heard it all.
No. So, last one, what small shift every owner could make this month that would improve conversions?
Again, it varies by company, but the vast majority of home services companies really need to get a more structured marketing environment. When I ask people, what does your marketing stack look like or what has it looked like? Many of them can't really answer that or don't even have it in a spreadsheet or they don't have good answers.
Yeah.
And I'm always surprised, Ryan, that when I get off these calls and I'm like, I'm severely impressed with how people can run 10, 15, 20 plus $1 million companies and just not really have a great structure in their marketing
Mhm.
and operations.
Yeah.
When I say marketing operations, right?
Hmm.
That's the biggest thing I see missing.
Yeah.
And it almost makes me just like, I just want to slow clap for these people. You built a multi-million-dollar
Yeah.
business, and imagine what you could do if you had some teeth and structure to this thing.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that functional marketing framework is so important. And I think that comes from that leadership level. And again, not for the shameless plug, but absolutely, that's what redemption marketing brings to the table is the ability to work together for 6 months, develop that department, which can be one person between your four walls that then holds all your vendor teams accountable. Because what I see is fragmented marketing across multiple vendors, and then the business owner taking those meetings each week and trying to hold them to a strategy or some type of centralized focus, and them coming out of those meetings scratching their head, not sure if that vendor is actually delivering or not.
Mm.
And so there has to be some sort of human that sits at the business level between your four walls to help hold those accountable and pull all that analytics in to paint that picture that Robert's talking about. Because one set of analytics from one vendor is going to be different than one set of analytics from a different vendor. And your ability to look at that and say, okay, what is this telling us, and where do we want to go coming out of that? Is usually is going to come from somebody at a top level, like a CMO that has kind of worked through programs like that. So that's what we do is we work together with you and a person at your ground level to help build that out over the 6 month period. We can talk about longer engagements beyond 6 months if we want, but typically, building out that quasi department again can be just one person handling that, but you have SOPs and you have structure and you have things in place to execute accordingly. That's what you uh, that will enable you to realize what you're really capable of, because your $10 million business that was built on the back of a post-it could have done 50 million if you had some structure in place. I think that's really important. Robert, this was fantastic conversation. What I love about the conversation is that it puts focus back on understanding the customer instead of just outspending the competition, right? And so, like, yeah, you guys have a great budget, but at the end of the day, you might not be spending it as efficiently as possible if your messaging is whack. So,
I love the language. They're so
yeah,
transparent.
yeah,
If outspending everybody was the strategy, Walmart and Amazon would be cleaning up,
yeah,
and
yeah,
they're not spending as much as they could, and they don't need to.
no.
So spend is not the answer. It's an important part, but it's not everything.
Yeah. Yeah, and spending on the right platform at the right time for you guys that are really seasonals like HVAC, spending on the right platform at the right time of the year is critical. And again, that comes from structure from somebody that's in a marketing position that understands the seasonality, understands your demographics of your service area, and which platform is going to resonate with them most effectively during that particular time of year. So, like, say we're in fall now, going into winter. 2 months ago, we should have started messaging more heavily on branding platforms and consideration platforms. So, TV, radio, programmatic advertising, and social media, with then the budget then starting to favor like bottom of the funnel attribution platforms like SEO, Google Ads, LSA, once we get into late November, early December. So you're priming the market and then you're capturing that demand. So it's just timing is everything, along with the simplicity and the consistency we talked about today. So if you can think about all this the way your customer thinks about it, if you can feel what they feel before they even buy, you can outsmart your competition in any market, in my opinion. So that's the real edge coming out of 2025, going into 2026. Empathy at scale, right? So
Love that.
if
That
you
could
want to learn
be
about Robert's work and his approach to using research to drive growth, check out growwithelevate.com. And if you want to connect with me, you can find me at redemptiongrowth.com. And thanks for watching. See you guys next time.